Said I was gonna make a video when I decided to figure out a fuel storage solution for the longer rides. And this is what I'm coming up with. I got these LC gas tanks. They hold 2.5 gallons each, so 2 of them should double my fuel capacity. I got these come from LC as well. They're just the little placement holders. I got the Milwaukee pack out work table with the wood top to mount the holders to the gas tanks. So let's get started. So what I'm doing right now is I drilled little pilot holes based off my marks, and then I started off with one hole drilled to the size of the bolt and trying to keep the fit as tight as possible. I don't want anything wiggling around just because it'll probably hollow out this wood board if it has any room to give and wiggle around. So I want the holes as tight as I can, so I drilled one to size for one bolt, and then I'll use that bolt as like a guide bolt, so that way I can hold this thing steady on the pilot holes, and hopefully none of these holes will have to be hogged out bigger than necessary. Okay, they're all mounted up. I got the bolts in, just gotta cinch them up, and they're all pretty symmetrical for the old micrometers, if I say so myself. When you're mounting these down, make sure you remember to put your little strap deals underneath the underside of the bracket, because that's what holds it down. And when you're doing that, make sure to pay attention to like how you're slipping this through there, because you want to make sure that when this is cinched down tight, you have the flatter side without the release. It's going to be facing the tank, so that way you can still get to the release and it's not going to be rubbing on anything. And then make sure your strap is nice and flat as you move it through there. And also, don't forget your washers. Okay, now that all the bolts are in, and I just have them loose on there right now, I'm gonna test fit these, because once I cinch them down, I think the straps are gonna be too tight to move. So I wanna make sure the straps are pulled as much through as I think is even, and that the metal tie down strap is gonna sit where I like it. So, and that's how they sit once they're all strapped down. I got the buckles where I can still easily hit the release, and then the extras just sort of chills up here on top, and it's not going to drag the side and possibly, catch on something. So, all right, here it is, all set up, ready to go. I don't have exactly 5 gallons. I'll fill up what I got, distributed evenly between the two. But that's all it cinched down, and it's ready for a test drive. Some of the things that maybe I'll mention that you might want to look out for if you want to copy this is there wasn't enough room in between these two bolts to fit this bracket entirely. So I shifted it to one side. I can't fit a Phillips in here anymore, because that's what it is a big old Phillips head. So I shifted it, but just enough to where I could still get a flathead in there and make sure to keep that bolt in the orientation that you can get a flathead in there. So I'll just give you the sizes real quick. For the bracket, the bolt size is a 4mm Allen head. The nut that goes on the bottom is a 10mm. The pack out equipment for the wood top, the bolt is a big old Phillips head, and then the bottom is a almost forgot, what is it? 7/16, bottom's the 7/16. I tightened down the brackets to the wood, man, as tight as I felt safe with such a small bolt. As far as tightening down the pack out wood top to the actual pack out plastic, you have to use some common sense there, which, I mean, me myself, I'm pretty notorious for over tightening stuff, but you gotta realize you're tightening on a bolt on wood to plastic. So you're never going to feel that stop, that tight. So you're going to have to use some common sense when tightening that down, when enough is enough, before you either start breaking plastic or breaking wood. So that's all I have to say about that. Nothing left to do but test it. Here we go. for the test. Overall, really happy. Nothing moved. Nothing seemed to be shaking too bad. No leaks, it appears. Now, I know these aren't completely full levels about right there. It's probably close to 2 gallons. I'd probably put a tad bit more in there, probably up to here-ish. But that's all I really want to run. I don't want I definitely don't want pressure all the time, just feel constantly up against this. So about right there would be right. So I could probably fit another half a gallon a piece in there. I'm going to assume I can hold about 4 gallons total here. I wouldn't fill them up to the full 2.5. Even though I got no failures, I got no reason to suspect that they would fail, but it's better to stay on the safe side. Maybe if I run 4 gallons on a regular basis and I don't have any issues, I might try the full 2.5. But honestly, between the 5 gallons of bike holds and the 4 gallons I can carry here, I couldn't imagine needing more than that in between fuel stops. So overall, extremely happy how this turned out. Right on. Catch you next time.